Hi everyone, this is Miss Patterson and Miss Felix coming at you from another day of teleschool. If you are completing these videos in order, then you are logged on today on 3/24, March 24th, and we are working on Lesson 8, describing settings and events in a story. So if you are just looking at the Georgia Standards, this one is ELA GSE 4 RL3. Just sounds like a lot of numbers and letters to you all, but basically what that means is our objective for this week, each day that we get on here to do our packets, is to use specific details in a story to describe the setting in depth. We're also trying to use specific details in a story to describe the events in depth. And then finally, we want to be able to understand how one event leads to another to create a complete story. So yesterday we started by going over our different academic talk, or our different words that you need to know. So they were here on this very first page of our packet. We went over the words problems, settings, solutions, details, and events. So if you need a refresher on what each of those words mean, just please go back and click on yesterday's video, which would have been day 1 of week 2, describing settings and events and stories. But we're going to go ahead and get started for today. So if you all could please open up to your packet. You are looking for a story that is called Meeting Grandma. So I'm scrolling through my packet online. You all should be flipping through yours at this time. And we're looking for what says Meeting Grandma by Gillian Adams. So our goal for today is to read about this realistic story about a family outing. First, you're going to read to find out what happens, and then you'll read to study the setting and events. So I'm actually going to do the first read through where we're just trying to figure out what happens with the story. And then on your own, you're going to be reading back through trying to find those specific details about the setting and the events. So let's first look at the title. It is called Meeting Grandma. It says Meeting Grandma. Sorry if you can't see it. Let me move my screen a little bit. Okay. It is called Meeting Grandma. So if we just think about that right there, think of some places where you might meet or pick up a relative. So we're trying to get our brains thinking about what we're about to read. So not only think about where you might meet somebody, but let's look at our photos that are also included here on this illustration. We have a picture of what appears to be an airport. We can take that guess because we see 2 airplanes waiting. We might not have been able to figure out the rest of the photo, but we know that we're meeting Grandma, and then we see an airplane. Well, we see 2 of them. So I'm going to assume that in this story that we're about to read, we're going to be reading about some kids picking up their grandmother at the airport. So this very first round, I'm going to read it to you, and then you all will have the opportunity to read on your own to find more details. If you would please follow along, we're starting at paragraph number 1. Several years ago, when I was about 7, my grandma flew to St. Louis to visit us. That summer, it was so blazingly hot that we rarely bothered to go outside. So naturally, we were thrilled to go with our parents to pick her up from the airport. Paragraph 2. The airport was a new experience to my brother and me. We rushed excitedly from one shop to another, fascinated by all the things anyone with money could buy. Eventually, we turned our attention to the restaurants, pleading for a pretzel, ice cream, a cold drink, anything. Paragraph 3. Our parents finally agreed to buy us each a fruit smoothie. We thought carefully about the flavors. Blueberry, strawberry, banana. What to choose? After a while, we made up our minds and ordered. Then the server was, so slow in preparing the drinks. But finally, the delicious concoctions were ready. Gratefully, we sank into our seats and began slurping them down. They were really, really cold. So we took our sweet time. Paragraph 4. And that is where Grandma found us. 20 minutes later, we had completely lost track of the time. Grandma's plane had arrived, and worried that we were lost, she had come in search of us. So if you see on the side, it says close reader habit. So this is someone that is really good at reading. As you read the story on your own, you should go through and underline details that tell you more about the story setting and the event. So I'm going to give you time to do that, but just as a reminder, The setting is when and where a story takes place. So when we refer to the setting, we're not only talking about the time of day or the time of the year, but also what season is it? What type of house are they at? In this one, let's look at our images because that is providing a huge clue to our setting. It then also asks you to underline anything that discusses an event. An event is anything that occurs throughout the story. There are main events, there are smaller events, but events are things that happen throughout the day. So one event that I'm currently going through is recording videos at home. Later on, when I get a chance to log off, I'm probably going to step outside in my yard, and that will be the second event of my day. So an event is anything that happens over the course of a story. So I want you all at this time to please go back and read and underline any details that tell you about the story's setting and events. All right, I hope you took some time to pause the video there and actually went and read back for those details. It is helpful that I'm reading to you, but for you all to become phenomenal readers on your own, you're going to have to practice reading to yourself. So please take the time to do so. If you properly went through and underlined for those details that tell you about the story, setting, and events, I want you to look at the screen here where I have all of these underlined blue lines. These give us clues to the setting, where and when our story takes place, as well as the events, what has happened over the course of our story. So the very first one says, my grandma flew to St. Louis to visit us. So that is not only an event that she's flying, but it also is giving us the setting. It's telling us where she's going, to St. Louis. That summer, so that would be another setting because it is telling us the time of the year or the season that we're in. It was so blazingly hot. We were so thrilled to go with our parents to pick her up from the airport. So now we know that they're headed to an airport. That is our setting. The first event here is not only that grandma flew to St. Louis, but now they're going to pick her up from the airport. So we have an event going on as well as a setting. We then see the airport was a new experience, so they're backing it up again. We know that we are at the airport because it is now said 2 times that she's at the airport. It also told us that she flew into St. Louis. Then we have the illustration on the side showing those airplanes. Let's continue. Paragraph 3, it says, our parents finally agreed to buy us each a fruit smoothie. So that to me would be another event. It is something else that happened. And this, as we're going to see pretty soon, is actually a major event because that leads to something else in our story happening. It then says we sank into our seats and began slurping them down. So that is another event. We took our sweet time. That adds on to our event, and we're going to see why grandma ends up coming. And that's exactly where grandma found us. So all of these are different things that happen throughout our story. So all of these are different events. Now, I just want to double check if you really did read and if you understood everything that was going on. See if you can answer these 4 questions. 1, why does the family go to the airport? I hope that you said to pick grandma up. Not only do we mention grandma several times throughout this text, but the title of the story is called Meeting Grandma. So that's a huge clue. Question 2. What does the family buy at the airport? If you don't know, please take some time to go back and look at the text. I even have it right there, sort of in the center of our screen is where you should be looking. If you said fruit smoothies, you are absolutely correct. They went and bought fruit smoothies. The beginning of paragraph 3 says, our parents finally agreed to buy us each a fruit smoothie. Question 4, where does grandma find the family? Where does she go and find them? If you need some help, look around paragraph 4. I hope you guys said that grandma found them sitting at a restaurant where they bought their drinks. Right at paragraph 4, it says, and that is where grandma found us. So they took their time slurping down their oh so sweet smoothies, and that's where grandma found them. And then question number 4, just to make sure you guys really comprehended our story. What is the story mostly about? So that kind of is like a main idea question. What did the author want us to get from this? What did we figure out about this story? I hope that we learned that getting so excited about something that you forget what you are supposed to be doing. That happens a lot to all of us, especially in class. And I think some of y'all know who I'm talking about. We get really excited about some things and then we forget what we're actually supposed to be doing. So right now, let's get back to what we're actually supposed to be doing now that we've read our story. And go ahead and flip over to the next page. This is a graphic organizer similar to the one that you all utilized yesterday. But now we're going to break it down with not only our setting, but also the different events that happen in our story and when they take place. So in this graphic organizer, you see some very key transition words. We see the word first, next, and last. So they want us to tell what happened in this story in chronological order. They want us to go from what event happened first, what event happened next, and then what was the last event. And we're going to do this together, so don't worry. For the setting, we just went over the setting a few times. The setting is where and when our story takes place. It can be the time of the day, the time of the year. For setting, please go ahead and write in that box where and when you think this story takes place. So on my chart, I put that the setting is inside of the airport on a hot summer day. So not only did I tell you the location of where they are, but I even told you when. It is during the summertime, during the day. So try to give as many details when it comes to the setting, and let's make sure that we are writing in complete sentences that have swag. So the setting takes place inside the airport on a hot summer day. So now we have our events. We've covered our setting. We know where and when it took place. But now we need to go back to our text and figure out what happened first, what happened next, and what happened last. There are a lot of little things. So they had to make a decision between smoothies. They had to decide which seats to sit in when they were waiting for grandma. But we want to make sure that we are only hitting those main events that help to change our story. So we see the girl here with the quotations, with the dialogue box on the side. And it says, think about how the setting, the time and the place, influences what happens in our story. So how that setting really impacts our events. So I'm going to give you a hint. For the very first event, I put that 2 kids go to the airport with their parents to pick up their grandmother. So please take the time to write in for the first event. 2 kids go to the airport with their parents to pick up their grandmother. So now I've helped to get you all the setting as well as our very first important event. The key word there is important. One of the things that helps to change our story, because they would have just been sitting in the house all day long if they didn't decide to go with their parents to the airport. So I want you all to use the remainder of this time to fill out the next and last boxes in your graphic organizer. At the beginning of tomorrow's video, I will also have the answers for you. But I want you all to fill out this next box and the last box. There's still some other questions on here, and we're going to finish this whole graphic organizer and this whole page 123 today. So after you finish this box up here with the setting, first, next, and last, go down to question 2. It says, how does the setting affect the family's actions? And how does that lead to the last important event in the story? So this is almost like a part A, part B question, because for you to get this right, you had to get the correct last event. So just a hint, and this is going to help you double check what you have. For my last box, I put, after her plane lands, hers, the grandmother, the worried grandmother finds the family in a restaurant drinking smoothies. So if that's our very last event, I want you to answer question number 2. How does the setting affect the family's actions? How does it change what they are doing? How does where they are change what they are doing and then lead to our very last important event? You are welcome to talk about question number 3 with whoever is at home with you, or just to think about it in your head. But you're going to describe the story in Meeting Grandma and how did it influence the characters, describe the setting in the story Meeting Grandma and how did it influence the characters and the event. So that's very similar to number 2, but I just want you to talk it out or think about it. The very last thing that you're going to do today is number 4. It's a short response. Describe the way the story setting of Meeting Grandma affected the characters and events. Include details from the story to support